So a couple of days ago, I was on a layover in Shanghai, and because I really, really wanted AlpenFury to be my 1,000th credit, which I don't know why, it was something we could do, and I picked up the layover to go to Toronto. I was like, well, now we really now in order to get AlpenFury as my 1,000th credit, it'd be a lot easier if it was like my first credit that I needed to become 1,000. You know what I'm saying? So instead of just waiting it out and just getting the Stupid Railway and a Yukon Striker and then AlpenFury is 1,000. I decided I was going to just go and get 2 credits, and then that way the next available credit would be 1,000, which would be AlpenFury, if everything went as planned. Because the way that I did this is I came in for Shanghai and took a nap and then went to Toronto, and the only way that would work with work legalities is if everything was on time. And for the first time in a long time, everything seemed to be on time, so it worked out. But while I was in Shanghai, I took a train out to Wuxi, which is a city in Jiangsu, not far away, and there's a Sunegland Park that we had been to in 2019. But when we visited, the park had just opened. So when we went for the first time, Dream Factory, which is a Zamperla indoor coaster that has a drop track and forwards and backwards motion, that wasn't open yet. And so I figured I'll go and get that, make that my $9.98. And then I was toying with the idea of getting my $9.99 on their Surf's Up Duck Duck Goose roller coaster, which is a Jinma, kind of like super splash type, very, very wet water coaster, and I hate water rides. And I think everyone knows that.
We didn't ride it on our trip
but
because
I had to,
we
suck
didn't know
it
it was a credit until after we went.
Yeah. It just looked like a big,
and
like a big shoot, and I don't
database.
like getting super wet with nasty water. But it really is you do a turntable, you have a backwards drop, upward hill, turntable again, and then the next drop. So it was pretty much like a super splash, different layout. So I had to get those credits, but it worked out perfect because then as soon as we got to Canada's Wonderland, we ran to AlpenFury, and we got that as my 1,000th credit. And today, I have over 1,000 credits. Finally,
congratulations on hitting your 1,000th credit, baby. Before 30 too. We love that. Very, very impressive. And yeah, AlpenFury is a great ride. Do you know that when they were developing, when they were putting together a concept, they had sent out an email to pass holders of 3 potential ride concepts, and there was a mine train and a music coaster thing, maybe a wing coaster, and then they're a launch coaster that goes up and out of the mountain with a volcano type thing. And it was insult to injury for the King's Dominion people because Volcano had just been demolished. But that's how we got AlpenFury. It's the spiritual successor, and it's a great ride.
And a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sean.
This is Alex.
And you're listening to another episode of Coaster Kings Radio. And today's episode is all about Canada's Wonderland, as discussed. Can't believe it. We kind of finally came back. We first went to Canada's Wonderland. I think both of us, our first time was at the same time. It was 2017. We had actually just met only half a year prior, maybe a little bit more, maybe 10 months prior.
Yeah, we hadn't even been together a year.
This is our first big theme park trip together, which of course we met because of theme parks. This is our big first trip together, and we went to Canada's Wonderland as probably the one of the signature parks of this trip.
That was such a fun
on this trip,
road trip.
God, what did we do? We did
started in
Pennsylvania
Baltimore,
parks,
and we went to Adventure Park USA, that little park in Maryland that has the Wildcat and the Windstorm.
That's right.
We didn't go to Six Flags America because we knew that we were going to go next year for Coaster Con. So we started in Baltimore and went west and we did Hershey Park, Dutch Wonderland, Seabreeze, Darien Lake, Fantasy Island, Marineland, Canada, and
you already mentioned
Wonderland.
Knoebels, right?
And we went to Knoebels. We went to Dorney. We went to Dorney Park too, right?
And to Dorney. We did a lot that trip.
It was a great trip.
Wonderland was
we covered
the last
a
big
ton of
park
ground
on the trip, I think.
Yeah.
Because Darien Lake and then the other park in Niagara Falls.
Martin's Fantasy Island.
On the Buffalo side. Yeah. So, my God, I forgot how many parks we really did. So anyway, yeah. So the biggest park on that trip was pretty much Canada's Wonderland, and I remember having a good time. And like it was just like Cedar Fair parks, especially that era, kind of ran together. And this is before Yukon Striker, and this is before AlpenFury. So lineup wise, I enjoyed it, but there was so much more out there that I would probably frequent more frequently. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. But now being back, I really kind of feel like I realized that this park is really deserving of a lot more credit. And it's funny to see the globe. We'll talk about the globe a little bit later in the episode. And I apologize if I sound a little bit congested, I guess. I feel I've been doing a lot of traveling, and I'm kind of really
both,
tired.
By the time we went and had dinner, we both had kind of lost our voices.
Oh my God, yeah. I can't believe I'm doing all this back to back to back. I was like, I'll take a nap when I get back from Toronto. Absolutely not. Straight into recorded podcast, straight into editing photos. There's no time to waste. Tron Aries finally tonight. I haven't even had a single evening off, and so since Tron came out.
I can't wait to hear what you say about Tron Aries.
Oh my God.
And then we'll go and see it when you get home next week.
Yeah. God, so much going on. Anyway, so highlights I remember very well in 2017 for me, and it'll be kind of fun to reflect back on as Leviathan. I remember buying a Leviathan hat. I mean, in 2017, that really was the star still, 5 years in. What was bigger and badder than that? Nothing really. Well, obviously, Vortex is really great because we love our arrows and swinging coasters. And back then, it was a star in its own right. Now it's almost forgettable because as a hidden between the two newest big coasters, you would kind of forget it's there, which is hilarious because it's buried underneath Yukon Striker and AlpenFury. But back then, it was by far the most iconic centerpiece coaster at the park. You know what I'm saying? Funny how that's changed.
I think the new coaster on our visit was Wonder Mountain Guardian because that was 2014 or 2015. And I remember we rope dropped that. We were with quite a few members of ACE Canada. There was 7 or 8 of us there. ACE Canada really showed out for us on our first trip to Canada's Wonderland. It was almost like a little miniature ACE event. It was very, very fun. That's what I remember the most about the trip was having so many great friends on that park day. It was like a party. I remember rope dropping Wonder Mountain Guardian because the capacity on that ride is awful and there's no fast lane or anything, and we did not ride it this time for those reasons.
It was my first B&M V-seating hypercoaster. Now I think about it. This is before I even went to Kings Island. This is before I even went to Carowinds. This was really kind of strangely early on in my North America theme park tour. So that was memorable, and I think it was a nice full circle moment having now ridden it again after I've obviously done all the other V-seaters pretty much. Mm-hmm. But we'll talk about it a little bit more. I think our best way to go about this episode, when I kind of laid out the notes here, is that we're going to kind of discuss our visit via a tour of the park of the memorable rides that we rode, or some points of interest that we want to talk about. Yeah. But of course, we started with AlpenFury, and we got fast lane. Alex bought the fast lane. Thank you for doing that. And
it's a good
online,
deal,
I believe,
in my opinion.
It didn't even say it included AlpenFury, but at the park it did list AlpenFury, and thank God because we needed it.
Yeah, the webpage is a little outdated. It doesn't include AlpenFury on the list of rides. I wonder if it's a thing
where they can just take AlpenFury off anytime if it was
but then
operational
on the app,
fiasco.
I downloaded the app and I got an updated version. I feel like they just haven't updated the webpage. Because that's the ride opened so late in the year, I think they just haven't even updated. It'll be on there next year. But Paul Schroeder, our ambassador of our trip yet again, who was kind enough to pick me up from the airport and take us from your layover hotel to Wonderland today. And then his wife, Adri, met up with us and spent the afternoon with us at Wonderland. He was like, no, it's on there. AlpenFury's on there. We have all season fast lane. And I was like, oh, okay. So I didn't have to it's just nice when you're going to parks and visiting a park with somebody who it's their home park. And you never have to wonder about any questions or any, it's just so obvious to the person that you're with, what to do. So that's nice. And yeah, even with Fastlane, it was still a half hour wait for our first ride, but it beats 90 minutes. And then our second ride, the wait was over 2 hours, but for us it was 45. So definitely a worthy investment, especially since our prestige pass is so cheap,
And I feel and we'll talk about AlpenFury and how it delivered for us. I'm just not a fan of lines, obviously, and a ride with AlpenFury's capacity at a park like Canada's Wonderland, it's one of those things where it's like, I would have probably really been a lot more critical and maybe even less excited about AlpenFury if I had been standing in a terrible queue just to get on it, because as an operation nerd in me, and legacy Cedar Fair parks with big coasters have historically been like super high capacity coasters, and Leviathan, Behemoth, Yukon Striker, they're no exceptions. They're incredible capacity machines.
Ever since Cedar Fair took over that park, it's just been like they've been churning out these people eater rides, either major high capacity coasters or really high capacity flat rides, or they build multiple rides in one year. I think Wonder Mountain Guardian was a notable exception. I feel like every time they built something around the mountain, they kind of sacrificed capacity for just being able to utilize the mountain for the attraction.
Yeah, it's not like you could have put a B&M in there, but so capacity was the biggest issue. But having Fastlane Plus, it was great because we actually just waited 30 minutes to get on, and it was the first ride of the day. It was 1,000 credit. It all like lined up well, and the weather wasn't great in the beginning yet, which is fine because we actually just spent time waiting in line and we didn't have time to take photos. Because for me, a big part of going to these parks is to actually take photos of stuff and edit them and use them for social media. I get kind of a rise out of it. I kind of turned into like kind of a coaster photographer enthusiast. And of course, you always take little videos and everything. And that part of content creation has gotten really fun to me again. Because a little side note, might as well be transparent with the listeners. That for a while, I think Alex and I were really kind of struggling with to find direction in Coaster Kings, because when I started Coaster Kings 2013, Alex had his own blog. We had a lot more time, and it was kind of like the focus of our lives, and perhaps our careers weren't really that in the way. But as time went on, and we started doing more and more regions and bigger teams and trying to get ad revenue out of website stuff, it just became almost like tedious. To the point where when I started my new career, I think we were on a cruise. I still remember we had like a really long conversation just like on this balcony in the fucking Caribbean. And we're like, what the hell are we going to do? That's what happens when you have too many days at sea on your cruise itinerary. We're like, what are we going to do with Coaster Kings? And that's when we decided to sunset all the sub-brands. This was November of 2022. Like, it's no more California, no more Florida, no more... Oh, Europe, we still do. But... within pretty much Coaster Kings being like a global brand instead of doing all the sub pages, and that was, I think, one of the steps. But I think it took a long time to get our groove back, and it was actually, I think, almost 2 years where we're kind of just treading along, and we're doing a podcast. It was really like a passion for me, mostly. I think really like the passion of the Coaster Kings, and then eventually we really picked up social media and photography again. I think it was actually our visit to. Hyde Park's Winter Wonderland, where we posted some videos of Winter Wonderland and did it really well. And we were like really passionate about posting about the rides we did. And it just seemed almost like a little light went off in my head. Like, oh, this is really kind of fun. In a way where now we've transformed our social media into stuff that we just want to post about and what we want to blog about, almost like it's replacing the whole website thing. We're just posting what we feel like talking about and then incorporating the podcast into that. And anyway, long story short, I love the photography aspect of it. I know Alex does too, and taking the little videos and doing the stories. But anyway, the weather wasn't good enough for that yet, so it was great to me. Just waited for AlpenFury.
Also, what happened at Winter Wonderland was like spending time with Martin and Charlotte, Diary of a Roller Coaster Girl. I think they helped re-inspire our interest in social media because we were just so burnt out. And then like the kind of model that Charlotte is employing with Martin on Diary of a Coaster Girl, we're like, okay, this is maybe more like what we should be doing too, because it doesn't feel like too much. It feels like they've taken their brand in like such a smart direction and like a sustainable direction, and it kind of like showed us like what a theme park blogging brand can be, that can be like just easier and less labor intensive. And
first of all, we've actually grown quite a bit, especially on Facebook. And the podcast this season is doing a lot better. So I want to thank everyone for listening. It might as well be a good opportunity to thank everyone for sharing and caring. and paying attention to podcasts. We're getting a lot of really positive comments, which is just really fun to see. Like, we're getting just messages from people on Instagram and Facebook, like, "Oh, like, your podcast is great, keep it up." Every week it seems to get better. And in my head, I'm not really focused on that so much, because it's just a passion project, really. So I'm not like focused on, oh, is it getting better? Like, are we improving this and that? We made a couple big changes regarding the way we record, putting our shows in more of a format, being more prepared, that kind of stuff. But in general, I'm just glad that we kind of found like a groove again, and clearly it's working. People are enthusiastic. I'm enthusiastic. People are liking the podcast. So for anyone listening to this episode as well, thank you guys for your support. I guess we don't haven't really discussed this before. Now we're like way deep.
It's also a great way for you and
6.
I to stay in touch, baby. Because like
also
we spend weeks apart at a time, and this is sort of like we're actually really bonding with each other while we're also recording a podcast.
It's kind of funny,
a nice
because
long phone call.
Yeah, because these are kind of conversations that we have on our own, which sounds so weird. It's almost like we're live podcasting at home. I feel like
when we hang out with our friends and we're talking about rides, they're like, "Wow, I feel like I'm listening to your podcast, but it's happening live, like right in front of me."
Yeah, we'll be like, "Oh, our life in Orlando when I am home, because I'm usually gone a lot. It's more of like, oh, we do our groceries and we clean the house and we do what we got to do. Go to the car wash, and then we end up at Disney, and we ride Tron, whatever, and then our whole conversation walking back to the car is kind of like a podcast. And in the car ride home,
we'll say stuff, and we're like, "Oh, that's good. Write that down."
I know. We're like, "Oh man, we should have recorded that." Of course, we can't just record when we're talking about like walking around Disney, Disney Resort, but. It's funny because really what you're listening to on this podcast is actually very close to what our reality looks like when we chat with each other off air, I guess. But
anyway,
here's a little look inside.
All of this to say that AlpenFury and Yukon Striker have lockers. They're the only rides where you can't bring a large bag on. So those are the two rides where you buy a locker. And since we brought our nice camera. So for the first, and it's like there isn't like a movable locker, but the lockers are cheap. They're $3 Canadian, which is about $2.15 USD. And since the weather wasn't that nice during our first couple of rides, we just got the locker for AlpenFury, good for 2 hours. So we took off across the water, across the little river to Yukon Striker, and did Yukon Striker because that was our next major priority, and also the only other locker ride for us. So that one.
Should we talk a little bit about AlpenFury?
Yeah, we could talk about AlpenFury.
Okay,
well, so we got 2 rides on AlpenFury total. We were in row 7.
Yeah. Okay.
And
so
row 1.
How I want to approach this, and I didn't write it down like this, so sorry to interrupt. But first of all, I want to just discuss the general feel. Like when he got up to the ride, I was impressed by how they fitted into the existing midway practically by elevating the station and then putting some switchbacks under the station and next to the station, and somehow managing to fit it between Fly and Thunder Run. Yeah,
yes, the mine train, the powered mine train.
Engine. And so I was impressed by that. I thought that it felt a little bit rushed and maybe a little bit cheap. Construction wise, I was in a Chinese queue, which is kind of funny.
It's funny because the positioning of the building, because it's like it used to be like a interfaith prayer room and like lost kids or something, and some games, and like
okay.
There was a very low key building that they demolished. They demolished the original building, built the new one on top of it that covers basically the same footprint. But it's amazing how they jammed a ride at a station into this little plaza that had already been quite established, with quite a few rides surrounding it in every direction. Like you have like the Fly on one side and Thunder Run on the other side, like you said. But then on like end to end, you have Shockwave, the Mondial Top Scan, and Soaring Timbers, the other Mondial ride that kind of looks like a top scan, but it's like 2 gondolas. I forget what the product name is called, but
and this is just around the station alone.
It's just right around the station.
Not even talking about the actual layout of the ride. But that part felt to me like I was impressed, but both impressed by the way that they managed to fit it in, but also a little bit like, they could have done a little bit more. But it is a Cedar Flags project, so it's not like I should have.
There's some touches
hopes.
That are cute. They did lots of little paintings of like little flowers and little sun and snowflake
whole, like,
emblem
thing
representing.
Is cute.
It's got like this German Alps vibe to it. And like the light schemes that are like the little sleigh bells hanging from the ceiling. There's some cute little touches in there. It's not, anything spectacular, but it's nice. Like there is a commitment to the theme there beyond just a roller coaster train that looks like a sled.
And so layout wise, first of all, the trains are much more comfortable than the previous Premier trains because you can there's no like little barriers on the side and there's no comfort colors, and that's all pretty decent. But then, they're still not the greatest trains. Not gonna lie, still not the biggest fan of those trains, but they're better than the previous iterations. But then the ride itself really shines in the way that it didn't really feel like a Premier to me. It's hard to describe because, of course, it's Premier in every sense, and even the way that it makes some of its movements feels kind of Premier. But having a ride of this scope, I'm used to Premier being like full throttle being like the biggest thing Premier is pretty much done with this product. Like I'm saying, because of course, Mr. Freeze and whatnot.
I think this was the next
this era.
Natural step after West Coast Racers, because I love that ride and I kind of forget about it sometimes. Is this
Skyrocket 4?
Yeah. And this ride does kind of feel like a marriage of the best qualities of the Magic Mountain Premier ride launch coasters. You've got multiple launches, you've got some nice speed and height and scope interactivity with existing attractions. But yeah, the size of it and like the there was just a real nice, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just bold. Like they had a really audacious like plan with this ride they real ambitious is the word I would use. It was a very ambitious project with like 9 inversions.
100%. I'm quite impressed.
Taking it so far out, like taking the ride from behind Wonder Mountain to all the way to the parking lot and back, like an amazing run, like an amazing stretch.
And it really is such the ride is such a presence, which is so cool because I'm having a lack of words here as well, but
it changed everything. The whole vibe of the park is different with it there. There's a great sound, it's loud, it's got like a nice roar
maybe
to
the really
it.
Big, and maybe the really big dive machine, like you're used to the scope of those things. But they also have really big elements. And now you have a ride that is actually filled with quite compact elements on a really large scope, doing a lot of really tight movements that stretches all across the park, almost like a curtain. I feel like it almost separates the park into this side AlpenFury,
right on that perimeter between the main midway leading to the mountain and the International Expo area and the
yet it doesn't distract
Canada,
from that
like the Yukon Canada
from a very
area.
Clean center waterway and the waterfalls. It doesn't distract that at all. So they did a good job with that. Layout wise, this was a concern that I had when they announced the ride, and I actually do stand with it. It is very focused on. I love inversions, but it's very, very, very focused on pretty much rolls, 0G rolls, barrel rolls,
corkscrew,
0G stalls.
things.
It's like there is not a really big variety of elements. So the first element is you have a little launch, and you have a pretty good airtime hill into the second launch, and then you just pop out of one
second launch is so great. It's so awesome.
That whole situation is out of control, and then you do like a 180 flip, and then you do like a top hat that has 2 inversions built into it, and then you do another 180 flip out of it. Like it is crazy stuff. Like it's really, really cool.
The inversion count on this ride is a little bit fudged because it's 9 inversions, but it feels more like maybe 7 because 2 of the inversions
maybe 8
kind of bring you right side up and then bring you upside down again. Like they've got the first top hat is counted as like 2 inversions, and then
that's the only one where I'm like that it could have been 1 as an account, but the other ones I do, I guess, all agree
they're
with
like lagoon
ones.
roll type stall where you do like a 270 roll and then back out, and then that's like. I mean, it's 2 inversions, but it's one element and it happens so quick. It doesn't, I guess I would say it doesn't feel like it's too many inversions. amazingly because some of the elements are so seamless, and it's not even that easy to know which way is up on that return.
So it doesn't feel like too many inversions maybe, but to me it does feel like the inversion variety feels very much like it's just doing the same thing over and over. I would have probably opted for maybe like a giant, like an airtime hill or two somewhere throughout there. Of course, the last thing I needed was airtime because they already have 2 giga, like a gig and a hyper. So like I noticed it wasn't the focus of this ride because they were kind of lacking in the inversion and the launch department.
Yeah.
So clearly that's the boxes being filled, and I really respect that. But in a way, to me, it was like, oh man, like roll, brake run. And so to me, it just felt like a little bit repetitive. But other than that, and I was ready for this. I've been thinking that since the POV animation came out, like, oh, this thing is so heavy on the barrel rolls, it's gonna be like a thing. And it was a thing riding it. I was like, damn, like it's a lot of rolls. But that's pretty much the only negative thing I have to say about it. It's a phenomenal ride. It is very good. It is a little bit milder than I expected, but I'm not mad about that because sometimes I don't want a lot of body aches. Like, I want to just, like, I want to feel speed. I want to feel like I'm going upside down because I love my inversions, and I'm getting that out of this ride. Comfort-wise, given a tiny bit better, but, it runs like a dream. You can say what you want about Premiere. They all run very well. There's no rumbling. There's no tracking issues. The Premieres just run well. Premieres and Vacomas, I may even say, are the only two
so beautifully.
Are the only two manufacturers where the current selection just tracks well. And I wouldn't say that about any other manufacturer at this point. And so that's really nice about it. It feels like you're going so fast, but it's a glass smooth experience. It's great.
Yeah. Great ride. I love it. I mean, it's a fast ride. It's unbelievable how big the ride is and then how quickly you go through it. No break, no breather, no moment of pause. Even a ride like Velocicoaster, you have the second launch halfway through, and it's sort of a moment of like stasis in your body where you're not doing any laterals or anything. You're just going straight forward. And it's sort of as close as you get to a break or a breather on rides like that, or like with Gotham City Escape and its third launch right before it does the stall into the final brakes. And this ride does not have that. It is once you have left the station, it is an onslaught. It is an assault on the senses until you are in the final brakes, which is really cool. I think that's what really blows people away about it, is how unrelenting it is. It almost reminds me very fondly of like Goodricks at Park Asterix, where it's like 7 consecutive inversions before you even hit the brakes. There's no mid-course. There's no halfway stop. It's like there's no breath catching allowed. Like you are really just tearing it up from the very beginning to the very end. So yeah, huge, impressive ride. High praise. Looking forward to hopefully another ride of this scope coming soon. It definitely gives Intamin a run for its money.
Yeah, it's just a really nice addition to their lineup. I feel like this is something that they really needed without realizing they needed it. Mm-hmm. And again, capacity is the only detractor on that, because I feel like for a ride this substantial, for a ride this impressive, for a ride this wild, it's almost like crazy to see like the theoretical capacity is technically, I think, even lower than that of West Coast Racers. Maybe that's just wild, but it is a phenomenal ride. They did a really good job, and I think it's
hard to be mad when they like have built something of such incredible substance. I mean, when you build a ride that's good, capacity is always going to be an issue, because if you build something that satisfies a demand, especially in a park with so many coasters, it's hard to like keep up with. Like, it's a good problem to have, I guess. And it's like, it is what it is. It's like if they had built something, maybe a higher capacity ride from a different manufacturer, I don't think we would have gotten a ride as good as this. There's no guarantees.
My only point here is that one thing I know is that the trains are always stacking. Even if you were going to just do a 2-train thing, I would have wished there was like a dual station, like an unload and a load.
Yeah.
Because to me, it seemed like there would have been enough time to unload every single one of these trains and then have it ready to be boarded again right after. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's something that
I think I'm just
maybe done
spoiled
differently
because of like Hershey Park opting for separate load and unload stations for Wildcats Revenge. And it's like, oh, this is a good idea. This is more regional parks need to be doing this for these coasters. Something about shin guards, man. I feel like these Premier Rides trains and the RMC trains, you just can't, no matter how small the train is, you just can't load them very quickly. AlpenFury only holds 18 people per dispatch, so it's still quite a few people fewer than like your average RMC train, but it's still a process. It still asks of a lot, and there's no seatbelts. I mean, I think AlpenFury really is built for speed, and I think they do about as well as they can, but it's just such a fast ride. Like, it's over so quickly. The train comes back to the station in such a short series of time that like even the smallest operational hiccup will lead to stacking. But it's better than running 3 trains and like double stacking and sitting in the brake run, like waiting for the train in front of you in the brake. Well, that's something they struggle with a lot with their B&Ms. I appreciate the ambition again. Like, I appreciate their willingness to try to make 3 trains work, but it usually just turns into a lot of sitting and waiting in the brake run for for your train to unload.
So next, I want to move on to Yukon Striker, because of course that was the next priority because we hadn't ridden it yet. And so Yukon Striker, and honestly, first of all, for everyone that's been listening along to this episode, you may have already been following along with us on social media, because we did an extended series of stories on Instagram and Facebook of following our day at Canada's Wonderland. So some of the stuff may not even be news to you, but Yukon Striker was a very, very pleasant surprise. So we had to get it, of course, next because we hadn't ridden it yet. Was my 1,001st coaster, also kind of a cute look. And I guess I can say right away, it was an amazing attraction. I was incredibly surprised. By far, my favorite B&M dive machine.
And that's saying a lot, because we have a lot of dive coasters that we love. So,
and I would even say it's one of the best B&Ms ever built. I would say that wholeheartedly, which means a lot because there's a lot of great B&Ms out there over the course of generations of B&Ms. And yeah, Yukon Striker really, really impressed me. And I think even because we rode AlpenFury in row 7 the first ride, and then went a Yukon Striker front row, the Yukon Striker after our first ride on each was actually our favorite of the two. Which is crazy to think that a dive machine would actually have that kind of impact on me. But Yukon Striker is a different breed. It is its own category to me of godly B&M dive machines.
It's like really great B&M because period. Like the drop delivers, the view from the top is incredible, the height is awesome, you diving through vortexes, turn around through the water, I mean, all of that is just a slam dunk. The Immelman is gorgeous. Like, it checks all of the dive coaster boxes like immediately, like very quickly. Just in the first couple of elements, it is as satisfying as any existing dive coaster anywhere. And then it goes into the roll, which is when things really get interesting. I remember like being just like blown away. I was like, wow, like this is an awesome maneuver to be doing on an 8-across train. Oh my God. And then you pull out of the roll and dive into the vertical loop, and it hauls ass. Like, I was going to say, it's not just any vertical loop. It is so fast. People were messaging us on Instagram because I took a video of it for the story. They're like, "This is sped up." I'm like, "No, this is like the actual speed." I was expecting some hang time. Loop. It's insane. Some Immelman hang time kind of fit. No, it's like you were buried in your seat. You come out of the loop, and then you go underground practically, even further into the trench. It reminds me very fondly of Osiris at Park Asterix. Oh, yeah. Because it's like vertical loop and then like a nice little slope, little down ramp into the Immelman, and then up into the brakes. And like that sequence of events, those 3 inversions back to back, it's just an unbelievable sequence of events. Like that, it like took my breath away. And then you hit the mid-course break. And from there, it's like, you know, the dive is cute, the little airtime hill. The helix is nice. You kind of return to your regularly scheduled B&M dive coaster programming. I think of it as like kind of a nice little sandwich where like you have the first drop and the first inversion are what you would expect, and everything after the mid-course is what you would expect. But in between the first inversion and the mid-course is like this unbelievable meat patty of awesomeness in your sandwich.
And what's so crazy is, I'm always not mentally prepared for B&Ms because don't run that well.
Mm-mm.
And even some of the older B&M dive machines have kind of...
I mean, we just rode
the
Valraven,
vehicles are so wide.
And it's just very okay.
So there's always going to be like an aspect of maybe even a little bit of like a tremble to it, just from being like a wide across train on a big track. But man, I mean, you're going to strike around like a dream. There was no roughness to it. I just can't believe it. I really almost feels like its own product type that Valraven is even part of, even though they're pretty much the same.
And they even have the same trains. They even look alike. It's like,
yeah, it's just
surreal.
like, it's like
it's so hard to believe that these rides are related in any way when one of them feels so conventional and the other one feels so like dive coaster anarchy. It's so over the top. Almost flamboyant.
So for us, that was really like such a highlight. And I mean, Alex perfectly described the layout already, so I can't add to that. But yeah, it's just really, really, really great ride. And I feel like it's the perfect ride for Canada's Wonderland because it's actually Canadian themed, and the way that it fits in with the color schemes, everything else around it, and having that, like the Yukon look. And it helped that there was like fall colors in the trees. Like I felt like it was like the perfect image. Like, I mean, I immediately called it the icon of the park. Like I felt like this was the perfect encapsulation of a Canadian themed theme park. Even though the park is really not that Canadian themed at all, this is the only real Canadian themed area. Man, I think it's like a masterpiece. And yeah, I just wasn't expecting it. I just was not expecting
these two
rides,
that much. Like these two coasters being Canada's Wonderland's newest coasters. Like, Canada's Wonderland is in their badass era. Like, these two rides immediately became our two favorite rides in the park without any question. It kind of is echoes of our Cedar Point trip where, like, we didn't feel that passionately about Cedar Point up until this past visit when Top Thrill 2 and Siren's Curse, like, knocked our socks off and became,
it's funny. I guess it really shows that
our two favorites in the park.
That like management of the chain really is calling the right shots there. Mm-hmm. And I was gonna say something. What was it again? I guess I just wanted to. God, what was I gonna say? This is terrible. Oh my god!
It'll come to you.
To say this. I was letting you finish your thought, and I lost mine. Yeah, anyway, it was a great ride. It was cool. It was awesome.
While we were over there, it's right next to Mighty Canadian Mindbuster, so we rode that too before going back to our locker. I'll talk about Mighty Canadian Mindbuster, and maybe your thought will return to you. So Mindbuster was a high priority for me. Aside from the new major credits, this was like my next highest priority because this year, after years and years and years of this ride having been reprofiled to make the run out a little bit gentler, it's a traditional out and back wooden coaster based on the Cincinnati Shooting Star at the Lost Coney Island in Cincinnati. Of course, this park was built by King's Entertainment Corporation. It was developed by people who love Cincinnati and love wooden coasters. And then when they built Canada's Wonderland, they kind of took it as their opportunity to not only resurrect the Coney Island Wildcat, which we've also seen brought to life in King's Dominion and Great America in Santa Clara, but also to bring back the Shooting Star. And when it opened, it had a nice, big drop and 3 bunny hills before the far turnaround. Somewhere along the way, during the Paramount years, and as they were expanding the water park, because the water park used to be hugged by the coaster, and then at one point they built a bridge over the track to connect to a new wave pool. And I think that may have been related to some of the reprofiling choices, but I'm not totally sure. But somewhere along the way, they reprofiled the ride so that it would have 2 hills on the run out. And the 2 hills didn't really do anything. They didn't really have airtime. It's very akin to like what they did with Great America's Grizzly, where they took all of the airtime hills and excitement out of like the King's Dominion Grizzly and ironed it out and made it into like a very gentle and uneventful family coaster. So like I feel like that was their headspace when they were making their changes to the Mindbuster. But then as of this year, Cedar Fair restored the first half of the Mindbuster, which is a huge project to go.
Yeah, basically
like
reprofiling.
They basically took down everything from the run out and like kind of started from scratch. The run back is still old. it's the same profile that it's always been. That part has never changed, but it's just in need of new track. And that will supposedly be happening next year. I remember when we rode in 2017, I remember the only part that wasn't terrible was the helix, because the helix had just been redone. The helix probably needs to be done again. But man, the first third of that ride is phenomenal. The track work that they have done is great. It's going to be so amazing when it is all finished, either next year. My guess would be next year they'll do the run out, and then maybe in 2 years they're going to redo the helix, and then the ride will be perfect. But yeah, I'm super impressed with their choice to bring back the triple airtime hill run out on your way to the first turnaround.
It's funny because the layout doesn't even really do that much, but having that extra, having the more airtime in the beginning is great.
Yeah,
it really adds to the experience, and it runs so well that I feel like that alone made the ride. Because other than that, I mean, the ride again doesn't do a whole lot. But that part of, like, if the rest of the ride will run like that, it's going to be a dream. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Looking forward to coming back in a couple of years when that project is done and riding it. And then hopefully they'll move on to Wild Beast, because we were talking to Paul and I was like, so how's Wild Beast running? And he's like, it's bad.
Yeah, so we didn't actually end up riding it. Yeah.
We rode it in 2017. I remember it was laughable how bad it was running. So I wasn't even tempted by it this year. I was like, we don't have time. We skipped a lot of rides this time so that we could focus on AlpenFury and Yukon Striker and some other new stuff. But like, we skipped a lot of the like B team coasters this year because we just like, there just wasn't enough time. We got there at like 1 o'clock and we stayed until like 8-ish. I think we were there riding rides for less than 7 hours. But I'm very happy with all the stuff that we did. After Mindbuster, we went back to... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So we actually went and did like a little photo tour because the lights started getting a lot better. So we went on a little tour and took some photos of AlpenFury, which was nice. And then we walked by Flight Deck, and I just need to say that Flight Deck was one of the coolest looking SLCs because I just love the color scheme, and I like how it has kind of like an elaborate theming around it, because it was like the Top Gun of that park. Of course, Paramount
was a very nice
the Top Gun
presence, I will say.
It has a very nice presence, and like the really great track and supports, and having the bright red trains. Flight Deck was great, and it's always kind of funny to me that that's what they got instead of like a B&M like Carowinds and California Good America got. And there's a cool reason behind that. And Alex will tell you the story behind why they don't actually have why they have an SLC instead of like a B&M invert.
So when Cedar Point built Raptor, something that B&M was doing a lot in the 90s, this was true of like the Busch Gardens parks as well. They were doing exclusivity embargoes for either like a certain chain park or a certain mileage between rides, and there was a 200-mile embargo on B&M inverts for Cedar Point. So that meant that I think it was primarily in place for Kings Island because they didn't want Kings Island to build a B&M invert. That's how they wound up with Invertigo instead. And like Busch Gardens Williamsburg did something similar with Alpengeist, which is why Kings Dominion built Volcano. And then, but this was also a lesser known casualty of this embargo was Canada's Wonderland. And Wonderland, there was an eagerness to build a B&M for that park because they had already established a great relationship with B&M. There were 2 B&Ms at Great America already, and they'd also built a B&M for Carowinds. So they had already built 3 B&Ms between 1991 and 1993. And with the inverted coaster concept really heating up, they were poised to do the same for Canada's Wonderland. But the mileage embargo is as the crow flies. So it's if you can hit a park in a straight line 200 miles from Cedar Point, you could not build an inverted coaster from B&M. And Canada's Wonderland is actually technically less than 200 miles away from Cedar Point. It's just because
so wild to
it
me
crosses
that they're so close.
The lake. It crosses Lake Erie. So they had no choice but to build the SLC. They built Flight Deck, which was the beginning. I will say it was the beginning of a very nice relationship. Maybe not a very long relationship because it kind of fell apart after 5 years, but it was at the time, a nice relationship between Paramount Parks and Vekoma. because that was the first major Vekoma ride that was built by the Paramount Parks. It was done out of necessity. And then after their success, their level of satisfaction with Top Gun at Canada's Wonderland, that was what led to Invertigo at Great America, Face Off at Kings Island, and Stealth at Great America as well. And that some of the family, the small kiddie coasters, the family inverted Vekomas and stuff, all of that was born out of being forced to seek a different company to build an inverter coaster for Canada's Wonderland.
So we didn't end up riding it because I was actually only down to one train. And it was already kind of
and
busy.
This one's just not very good.
The SLC is not really the priority, you know?
We love Vekomas. We love SLCs, and this one's just not a good SLC. If we had time for a Vekoma that day, I would have opted for the Bat, because I think the Bat is really cute, and I love that it runs an aero train. It runs the third train manufactured for Dragonfire. Within the first few years of Dragonfire operating, they realized that 3 trains would never be necessary or possible for that ride because it's so small. So they took the third train and purchased a Boomerang for it. So it's got a nice aero train. We didn't ride either of those. We didn't have time for Dragonfire either. We thought about riding it, but then as the day went on, we decided to just kind of consolidate and pack it in a little earlier and focus on re-rides on the 2 big new coasters.
And then we did walk by the plot that Time Warp was at, and I think it's kind of funny to see that it was there, because in the head it feels like nothing's really missing except for the fact that the entrance of the ride is still there. And then apparently, I guess the theater next to it, like the King's Theater, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, the big amphitheater, Kingswood Theater.
That's going to probably get scrapped, and that means that they're going to get perhaps a new big ride. So that's kind of exciting. Kind of on a roll. I wonder what's next for them. But yeah, so it's kind of funny that ride's gone. I don't think it's missing in our lineup at all. And if now you have shiny new toy AlpenFury, I don't think anyone's even remotely concerned about Time Warp being gone. And again, it didn't really feel like it was missing.
It just didn't feel like a quality ride of all of the coasters there. It just felt like such a cheap, unnecessary addition that only looked attractive on paper. Terrible capacity, especially for a park like Wonderland. Not a positive rider experience. Like, just a very a flying coaster, sounds like a cool thing to tell people that we have, kind of thing.
Honestly, I think the park would actually be pretty cool if they got like a new Tacoma flying coaster, because I think they could handle that kind of capacity. And let's see, what did we
I will
do
never
next?
not say that a next generation Vekoma flying coaster would be great for like any given park. I don't think there's a single park out there that couldn't be improved with a variation on Fly at Fantasyland.
Exactly.
And that goes for Canada's Wonderland.
And let's see, what did we do next?
From this point on, we did Vortex. After, taking pictures, doing lots of pictures.
Well, no, we rode Vortex first, right? So we were in that corner.
We rode Behemoth. Oh, I forgot.
Okay, so Behemoth. So that was my first V-seating hypercoaster. And I think back in the day, I remember really thinking, which was then Intimidator, now Thunder Striker. God, these names. At Garrow,
I don't know why they didn't just call it Tangent. Why did they just call it Thunder Road? It's so stupid.
Oh, it's so cool.
Just call it Thunder Road. It's so stupid. Anyway,
so but Behemoth actually was better than I remember it being, because first I was like, I don't like that it has one big airtime hill, then has a turnaround, but then it just follows up even more airtime hills after the turnaround. I'm sure if I rode Thunder Striker again soon, because I haven't been there in 6 years either, I would probably maybe still like it better. But I really did like Behemoth a lot, and sitting on the water is very nice.
Yeah.
And then for someone who likes these lateral moments, having 2 helices, like a one big one and like a small one, and another 2 airtime hills after the mid-course brake run, it actually feels kind of substantial and almost like a pays homage to some of the earlier models, because these V-seating coasters don't do a lot of helicy stuff. So that's actually kind of nice.
Yeah, of the Cedar Fair B&M hypercoasters, I think it was obviously the first one. Cedar Fair wasted no time putting that coaster in that park. It was almost like they could see, like when Cedar Fair acquired the Paramount Parks in 2007, it was like so obvious to them that Canada's Wonderland was like malnourished and that there was a huge
like
opportunity
so
for turning this into like easily the largest. It's the most attended regional park in the country. Like it is the most, or in the continent.
Well, it's not very difficult, but yeah.
Sorry. It has the highest daily attendance of any amusement park in North America.
Regional park.
Yeah. Seasonal park. What did I say? Regional park? No, seasonal park.
You said park.
Oh, yeah. For seasonal parks, it has the highest daily attendance of any park in North America, and which is an incredible feat. And it makes a lot of sense when if you're on the outside looking at Canada's Wonderland and seeing the stuff that they tend to build, it seems like they can never. It's like they're always chasing to accommodate their own demand. They're constantly adding these massive, super high capacity flat rides, or major roller coasters, or huge expansions to their colossal kiddie area, or like growing up their water park. Like they're always doing something that would imply that
increases capacity,
that they are busting at the seams. Like on any given operating day, the park is just like bulging at the edges with guests.
I think I posted this in the story. I'm like, God, could you imagine this park before Cedar Fair came in? It's like, because like all the big stuff, the whole skyline, it is 100% dominated by like Cedar Fair mass investments. Like the biggest, the biggest thing they had was literally like Wonder Mountain and Vortex on the side of it. Like that is the biggest thing they had. And now it's like Vortex is quite literally an afterthought. Like it's buried by all these other attractions.
It's now. Just like an accent.
Plopped on top of it. AlpenFury is plopped on top of it. You would forget it's there if it wasn't for its bright red color scheme. Painted light blue or painted green, whatever. You wouldn't even know it's there. Yeah, that's the wild part. I guess we can move on to that right next. Behemoth's not much else to talk about. It's the standard Cedar Fair kind of investment.
All I would say is that like it's really the three airtime hills along the water, especially if you're on the right side of the train, are really beautiful. And in retrospect, between Behemoth, Diamondback, and Thunderstriker, it's like I think it's obviously the most attractive looking one. I don't think that. I mean, Thunderstriker. It's not Carowinds' fault, but like Carowinds is not like in a pretty place. It's just like parking lot on all sides. So like it feels a lot like It feels a lot like Behemoth, except instead of like being next to a body of water, you're just next to the parking lot. And then Diamondback, I've just always had a bone to pick with because it feels like it just runs shitty. Like it just does not run as well.
Because I feel like on paper, Diamondback should be the best one.
It should. It's got a great layout.
Like it has a cool layout.
It has some nice like directional changes around the ride, but it just doesn't run well. But aside from that, even if it did ran as well as Behemoth, I do love Behemoth's post mid-course a lot. Like that felt like much more of a ride highlight to me than I remember. And I really can't say the same for Diamondback or especially Thunderstriker. Everything after the mid-course on those rides feel a lot more like they're just positioning the coaster to get you back to the station. The splashdown on Diamondback looks really nice, but it's kind of a non-starter. Like I don't think it really improves the experience for the rider. It only improves the experience for the person watching. The Behemoth is the only one that really feels like it's got some substance behind the mid-course. It reminds me fondly of like Nitro, a little bit of Goliath at Six Flags over Georgia, like that kind of vibe. But yeah, from that point 100%. We did Vortex, which is just wonderful.
Vortex is always. Because last time we were there, it was still kind of a more generic look, like copied to Kings Island and Carowinds aesthetic and theming, which was practically non-existent, and just like a kind of a retro logo. And now they kind of wanted to incorporate it into like the Yukon Canadian area. And so the nice thing is that the trains have gotten an upgrade and they look a little more rustic, a little more thematic. And then because the coaster was already always really cool going like over the water and whatnot, now it's just underneath Yukon Striker, and it really feels like it's living in a shadow now, but like in the best way possible. So when you dive off a Wonderland and you have your big, big swooping drop, and then you have your big turnaround over the station, after that, I feel like your entire ride is either between trees or over water, and then below Yukon Striker. So it really feels very kind of secluded, and it feels not as out in the open. It used to be like this giant ride out in the open, like on a grass field and on the lake. But now it's like almost like a swamp snake. Like it's just hidden. I love it. I think it's a it's a completely opposite ride now.
Looking at pictures that we took of the ride on our 2017 visit, and you can see how it still had the Iron Fist logo. Yeah. For those of you watching at home, the Iron Fist triangle logo. They definitely have leaned in more on the why do I keep forgetting the name of their Canada area? It's like Frontier Canada, right? That's what it's called.
Frontier Canada, yeah.
So they have leaned into the Frontier Canada aesthetic. That area of the park didn't really used to exist. It wasn't until Yukon Striker. Paul was telling us the history about how Canada's Mighty Canadian Mindbuster was supposed to be the focal point of the Frontier Canada area for Canada's Wonderland, but it was never built. And they ended up putting the water park where that area had planned to be. And then from there, they when they wrapped the midway around, because the midway that like Yukon Striker and the Rapids ride and the Shoot the Chute and Vortex are on didn't even exist when the park opened. Mindbuster was just a little dead end in the corner, and now it's the entrance to Frontier Canada, and then from there you have those 2 water rides, the 3 coasters, and some flat rides, the entrance to the water park, like a lot of attractions. It wraps all the way back around.
What's interesting about that to me is that Canadian Mindbuster feels very Paramount in a way, where like the station is like a boxy station, no theming whatsoever. The queue is very minimal. I almost wish it, because the Vortex they gave a little bit of love, and even the Vortex is still really, really basic. At least the trains got an upgrade and the logo got an upgrade. I kind of wish Mighty Canadian Mindbuster had maybe like a little more of a mind-themed station, like something, because it just feels like almost like the Hurler, like the most basic thing possible.
You can just tell like the money had run out. Like there was just no money to do it, and then they just haven't done anything since. I wish they would do more now.
Because Yukon Striker, aesthetically speaking, is very nice. Not because the color scheme great, but the queue, like the building for the station, having all the wood tones, and then using all the rocks, and even the stairs use like rock finishes. It's a really nice product, like a very polished version of a standard Cedar Fair look. I kind of wish they would apply that and maybe upgrade my Canadian Mindbuster. But anyway, Vortex.
Well, maybe as they're finishing up the restoration project for Mindbuster, they'll like put some more aesthetic stuff in there and kind of try to drum up renewed interest in the ride to let everybody know that the rehab project is done, and then it's like over the course of years has become like a brand new coaster.
But yeah, Vortex runs great as ever. I mean, the layout's awesome. It's
phenomenal,
a little short,
as always,
but it's phenomenal. Yeah. Next up, we did actually AlpenFury again, but this time we did it in front row, and I think a front row it is phenomenal, and like much better. Come on,
that took my breath away. I had a lot of room because of the shin guard on this train. Like Sean and I, because of our height, we can kind of get away with having the lap bar down to a fault, and if the ride operator comes and pushes it down another click, like that's fine. I don't really care.
That's more of a you thing, though.
What do you mean it's more of a me thing?
Snug. I always make mine snug.
Yeah, you prefer. Well, for most rides, it doesn't really matter. Not clearing. Yeah, that's fair. But like we'd already ridden it, and you can see on AlpenFury the little green stripe on your lap bar that says it's a very analog system. It's not like we have to worry about a button lighting up on a panel somewhere that we can't see.
Babe, there's a literal little green light next to the restraint on the outside of the vehicle that lights up green.
But we can't see it if we're sitting down.
Yeah, you can if you look over.
I'm not fucking looking at that. I'm looking at my green stripe on the lap bar. I've always checked myself
on Premier Trains
I'm always
like that
looking at my little lap bar. I mean, that's kind of... I don't think I had my lap bar down that far on the first ride either. But it's like, I also have a really big chest. So the ride operator... I expected the ride operator to come and like push it down further, and she didn't. And I was like, okay, sure. So I had a ton of room on our front seat ride, especially, I think it was about as much as I had on the first ride, but on the front seat ride, there was more airtime. It felt more noticeable. And I was out of my seat the whole time. And it was awesome. It felt like I was on a mechanical bull.
It almost felt like a different ride. It was so good in the front.
It had been running all day. It was warmed up.
It was all about just the speed and running through those inversions and feeling the ride and just the motions and the flow and just having the wind in your face. Because again, it's a really flowy ride. And it's not super, super intense. Yeah, I really liked it in the front. It was even better in the front for sure for me.
Yeah, front seat ride. That's another. So here's a good tip. Like, do the Fast Lane Plus. Like, you're going to Canada's Wonderland, just do it. Do the Fast Lane Plus. It's worth it. Whatever day you're going, it's going to be busy. Canada's Wonderland is busy.
It's never not busy, yeah.
Every day. So go to Canada's Wonderland, whether you're buying a ticket or if you're on a pass, it doesn't matter. Even if you have to buy a ticket, buy the ticket and also buy the Fast Lane Plus. And one of the best benefits for Fast Lane Plus is Fast Lane Plus loads the lead car of AlpenFury, which means that, like, if you're on Fast Lane Plus, you get first dibs, basically. If you're at the front of the Fast Lane Plus line, they will basically let you pick the front row. You can't wait for the front row any other way. Our first ride, it was you, me, and Paul, and then there was a group of 2 in front of us, and they let all 5 of us through. They let up to 6 people in at a time per dispatch of Fast Lane. But then for this one, we let some people in front of us so that we would be at the front so that we could get our front seat ride. And it's just so worth it. Like, that alone, if it wasn't just about getting in line and getting through the line 3 times as quickly as the standby line, the fact that you also get your shot at the front row, or like in our case, because the front row was already taken, we took the back of the train for our first ride, because that's also a great choice too. Standby people not only have to wait longer, but they really just get the middle of the train. They get whatever's left. You really don't have much leverage on that ride at all. So between our 2 rides on AlpenFury, it was like, Fast Lane Plus was just like a necessity. And then 10-minute waits on Yukon Striker instead of like 45 minutes or an hour for Yukon Striker. And then pretty much walked on to everything else. Behemoth and Leviathan were all very easy. Like, just walking. Mindbuster, I mean, we didn't even break our stride walking onto Mindbuster. Fast Lane Plus includes the B&Ms, all 3 B&Ms, and AlpenFury. Regular Fast Lane does not include those coasters. It's basically unnecessary, in my opinion. It's only $20 difference.
Well, I don't know if it's true, because at least the B&M coasters are super, super high capacity.
Yeah,
so like, if any line's going to move, it's going to be the B&Ms. And
but
it's
you
not
can either
pay
like $65 USD for Fast Lane, or like for $15 more, you get the 4 like high profile coasters. They're
using it like an upsell marketing thing.
I just think it's obvious. Like, it's an obvious choice. You're going to need it more
for flight deck. Then you're going to need it for the B&Ms.
I get it. And I guess I will say, like, I mean, if it's just a credit run for you, I don't know. I have a hard time imagining a scenario where, like, the regular Fast Lane would still be relatively attractive when, like, for such a small percentage more of what you're paying, especially if you're buying a 1-day ticket, you're already spending $100 or something on the ticket, and like $65 for Fast Lane. What's $20 more? And then you get your pick of the litter on AlpenFury. Your wait is 1/3 of the wait time on AlpenFury. And I mean, like, the lines for like the Hypercoaster and the Giga were not short. It's not like you would just waited 25 minutes for Leviathan. That line was huge.
That's true. Because the dispatches were terrible. But
yeah, like,
theoretically speaking, should be fine.
Like, the dispatches are not actually as good as they can be sometimes. Like, we're definitely not at King's Dominion. Like, there was just a lot. There was stacking behavior. So I don't know. If you're already spending the money, if you're traveling to Canada, if you're going to Toronto to go to Canada's Wonderland, like, Fast Lane Plus is like the only way to go. I think it's an excellent value. And don't let the sticker shock freak you out, because remember, the Canadian dollar is like 70% like more or something. Like, I forget the formula, but is it, or not 70? What am I trying to say? Like,
Nothing, because the Canadian dollar is
somebody had the
so
conversion.
Yeah, so $3 is like
$2.15 USD.
Yeah.
So if you,
but yeah, talk about Leviathan, talk about the big B&Ms.
Yes.
We haven't talked about her yet, and of course,
we didn't get to her until so late. It was like twilight because we were so focused on other stuff.
So yeah, last time we visited, that was like the big star, of course, and I was very excited to ride it again because when we first went, it was relatively new, still 5 years old, and now, of course, it's 13 years old already, and so like she's almost a classic, and she's getting great. Like I really liked. There's a character to it now. It just felt like it didn't feel like a crazy new coaster. It didn't feel like a modern ride in the scape of Canada's Wonderland. It really felt like one of the OGs in a way, like OG as in like when Canada's Wonderland really started getting his new identity. That was really one of the rides, and for me, I really enjoyed that. It just felt like a really vibey ride. It's not very intense, not compared to AlpenFury and Yukon Striker, because Yukon Striker is super intense, like sea stars kind of positives. And it was just vibey and fast and cool. And I think I said in my story, I'm glad Orion was built because Orion makes me appreciate Leviathan so much more because Leviathan just seems to now do a lot more. Because first it was okay, they built Orion, and they built Leviathan. Everyone's like, well, it doesn't do a whole lot. Especially we had Behemoth in the same park, and then they built Fury 325, and everyone's like, well, what the hell? Like we got Leviathan in Canada's Wonderland. Like they could have built a Fury, but then they built Orion, and suddenly Leviathan is like, all right, like Leviathan's like. Just right. Just right. It's a vibe. It's cute. It's cool. It's a good fit for the park. I really enjoyed it. The layout is different enough of Behemoth, and because now it's not by far not the worst B&M Giga. That's great. It's cute. I loved it. I had a really great time. Highlight of the day for me.
Time has been gracious to Leviathan, and I think time will be gracious to Orion too, especially in the current era of B&Ms. Everything that B&M has built in the last 3 years has made me appreciate the B&M coasters that I used to not care for at all. I'm sure the next time we ride Orion, we'll appreciate it more for what it does, relative to like maybe how we felt about it a couple years ago. But yeah, Leviathan has a beautiful layout. I think it's a really elegant ride. It does a lot of nice things very well, and I appreciated it more this time than I did on our visit. And I think because the pressure, like you said, like the pressure's off. Like now the ride's 13 years old. It's easier to appreciate it for what it is. It's kind of going through like what Millennium Force went through, where, you know, everybody loved it in the beginning or had their reservations about it. And then it kind of, you know, you spend a lot of time feeling like it didn't live up to its full potential. And then after a while, everything that it does starts to feel kind of quirky and feel like something very symbolic of the attraction, something that's unique to that ride. It just felt like really easy to appreciate on this visit, more so than Behemoth. Behemoth just doesn't feel. I mean, we have a lot more hypercoasters than giga coasters. Behemoth felt a little too middle of the pack,
I guess,
for me. But Leviathan really stands out this time.
So one thing I do have to say is that, see, rides like Thunder Striker, Behemoth, Diamondback, those are rides that maybe on a global scale are found elsewhere. You have your the one that was never open in China, of course, the Hago World, but of course you also have the one at Portaventura. You've got Shambhala. So there's like more rides like that I feel like in a similar vein, but the B&M Gigas are really like a Cedar Fair product. They're really only at Cedar Fair parks, and they were really to complement existing B&M hypercoaster, so they were really creative with putting a lot of fast elements on and not making it just big airtime hills. So in a way, I appreciate those layouts so much, and it really is a Cedar Fair thing because they decided they really needed almost like a modern Millennium Force that wasn't really doing a lot of airtime. It was doing a lot of just fast, big turns, and that really makes those rides so much more fun to me. I think in all aspects, I prefer the Gigas at these parks over the traditional hypers at these parks.
Yeah, definitely. It makes even Orion, which of course is kind of the the kind of the butt of the joke, but I would definitely take Orion over Diamondback.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I don't hate Orion. Like, it's just funny that now Leviathan seems like so much more because of Orion, you know?
Ryan doing what it did in 2020, it was kind of a harder sell versus like what Leviathan was doing 8 years before.
I mean, in 2012, Leviathan was a legend. I mean, everyone's like, "Oh my god, a B&M Giga!"
Yeah,
remember how people were saying that B&M said they would never build a Giga,
they would never do it.
Build a Giga dive coaster.
Leviathan seemed like kind of surreal, and I remember people being surprised to see B&M go back to the 4-across row, because we had actually only in that window of time had only seen the stadium seating B&M hypers, I think, for quite some time. I'm pretty sure that Behemoth, Diamondback, Intimidator, and Shambhala were the only other B&M hypers that were built in that window. So we had like 4 consecutive hypers with the stadium seating, and then Leviathan was the return to the 4-across seating, and then the V style seating was never seen or heard of again. It was just like a very specific little window of time, like literally like 5 years. And then with Leviathan, it reverted back to normal. They decided somewhere along the way that it was the V seating was an unnecessary like upgrade to the ride system.
There's something about those really long trains that's kind of aesthetically pleasing, though.
They're very elegant, and I think that is one thing that sets the Cedar Fair hypers apart from other hypers. But then I feel like between the 3 of them, there's not a whole lot that sets things apart from each other. They feel very, very indicative of each other, kind of the way that the 90s Cedar Fair Morgan Manufacturing hypers are. They were never built to be unique to each other. They were just built to be unique in the marketplace overall. There's those 3 parks with those 3 coasters respectively against the marketplace versus trying to be unique for enthusiasts, for example. But yeah, our Leviathan ride was great. It was nice to ride that again, and I really, really appreciated it a lot more this time. And then we did Drop Zone.
And then we Drop Tower, which is exciting because we love Drop Towers.
I have a theory that, and it was a super easy time commitment, and I love riding the Paramount Park Drop Towers because it takes me right back to the 90s. It always makes me feel like a little kid. I love seeing the little Drop Zone stunt tower touches that are left behind. Some of the like the color, like the like rainbow splatter paint bullseye motif, and some of the like black and white checker flag, like
I mean, it's god awful ugly
studio, like,
but it has like but it has a classicness to it, and for you, it's really like sentimental.
Yeah, for Wonderland is actually surprisingly quaint. It's funny how every time, like, there's 5 drop towers that Paramount Parks built, and every time they went with a slightly different version. Carowinds got the 16-passenger one, the 4 gondolas. Canada's Wonderland went with the 28-passenger, 5 gondola one. Both of those rides are like kind of similar in their placement. They're both like all the way off to the right. They're next to like
a Woody,
the wooden coaster, like the standard, like it's next Hurler and Wild Beast respectively, over by the go-karts. Like, it's funny how similar those rides feel in their respective role in the park. And then for Great America,
even at Great America, it was like next to Grizzly and next to the NT cars.
Yeah. At Great America, I always felt like Drop Zone was much more of a focal point than it felt at Canada's Wonderland or Carowinds. And it's the taller and had the 6 gondola version. And it always had such a nice presence. Like, it has a big presence with like a huge overflow queue section and like a big fenced off area where you can't really get that close to the ride and when you're standing in the midway. Whereas like the one at Canada's Wonderland, it's like they have the tiny little overflow queue area under some trees. And then like when you're sitting on the ride, you're like so close to the fence. Like, we're talking to Paul and Adri, like having a conversation with them across the fence. It all feels very like intimate and small compared to the presence, the mightiness of the one at Great America. I still remember like all the nets, the big nets catching stuff, and like the big street lamp
or the one at King's Dominion or King's Island. Those are massive.
And then and then like for King's Island, they did
especially King's Dominion.
The Roto Drop. The King's Dominion and King's Islands have much bigger presences. Like, every time they built one of these rides, they went bigger and bigger and bigger, and like plussed up the scope, the presence of these rides. I've always loved the presence of King's Islands being like the focal point of the action zone area. And I love King's Dominions and how like it's so central to the park
ring shape.
And so massive and so like beautiful looking, the big like bike tire looking thing. But yeah, it was. I love the one at Canada's Wonderland. I love the black gondolas. It still has its original paint job. The one at Great America has been painted. Has had several color schemes. It's on like its third color scheme, and it's got that Pacific Northwest tree line color scheme now. But yeah, I really wanted to ride the one at Canada's Wonderland because Carowinds cut theirs last year, and I wouldn't be shocked if that was something that they did for Wonderlands. 2 of their gondolas weren't running. It was down to 12 people per dispatch, and there still wasn't that much of a line. So, like, you never know. Like any ride in this era in 2025, like no ride is safe. So I was like, I want to ride the drop zone at Canada's Wonderland because it's the one that I've ridden the least of all of the 5, and like who knows, it could be gone the next time we go there. So,
and then we plan on riding the new Snoopy Railway, which is a Barn Engineering family launch coaster that has that goes around twice, and it's actually quite a nice long layout, but the line was really long, and we were very tired, and so we were going to dinner, and we had to be up at like 4 a.m, so we actually decided to skip because we will be back at this park. I think at that point it was very clear that we were going to come back sooner, and leave less of a gap. It's also actually quite easy now with where I'm based for work to pick up a trip that goes to Toronto. So yeah, we didn't ride it, but I do want to give it a shout out for looking really cute, and maybe
it's really cute and has a nice layout. Next time,
it's nice theming. Yeah, that's cute.
I still need my taxi jam credit too, but Sean got on our 2017 visit because we found a kid to ride with him. And now, according to Paul and AJ,
crazy days. Now I really feel so weird about even the idea of asking someone to ride with a kid. I would just skip the cred.
They don't.
But back then, I guess
I wanted to encourage you because you had been denied. You missed out on Ride of Steel at Darien Lake because they told you were too tall.
Oh yeah,
and I felt bad, so I was adamant about getting you the Taxi Jam credit, even if I couldn't get it, so that we would get the same number of credits.
Ride of Steel, Taxi Jam,
trip. Yeah, but
so great.
A credit for a credit. Like, we're gonna go back to Darien Lake someday and get your Superman credit. We'll opt for the last row instead of that was hubris on our part because we walked in. Went to the front row, 0 fucks given. Like, we've changed a lot. A lot has happened in 8 years. We've learned a lot about
as aware
about sneaking you onto rides that you're technically too tall for. And also we riding the one at Six Flags America this year with the new trains made me appreciate the ride more. And I'm glad, like, whatever happens to the one at Six Flags America, at least we have the one at Darien Lake still. And there's a new coaster at Darien Lake, so go and get the new credit and ride Superman at some point.
And then, let's see, we did Thunder Twister, which we weren't really planning on doing
Thunder Twister!
But it looked so cool, so we did end up doing it.
Yeah, there was like no line, and it's just really neat looking. One of a kind, mondial pendulum flat ride. Doesn't go upside down. It looks like it would be some like crazy flipping action, but really the gondolas swing.
Yeah, like most flat rides there. It's not nearly as severe as it looks.
It's very much like the sequel to Sledgehammer, which is a ride that looks really aggressive,
Timbers,
but it's not that aggressive. But yeah, I really enjoyed Tundra Twister and the views from that ride and the way that it fits in. It really fits Yukon Striker like a puzzle piece. It fits in so nicely. The clearances are so close. You're so close to those rides. It's amazing that it fit.
I almost feel like it was designed just to fit in there.
Yeah, and it's one of a kind.
I almost feel like it was like a co-design. Yeah,
I was like, since we decided not to do Snoopy, we saved ourselves 40 minutes by not doing Snoopy. I was like, well, let's do Tundra Twister. It's on the way. And so yeah, we did that as like our penultimate hurrah, and then we did our final ride of the night, front row night ride on Yukon Striker.
With like a slight sunset in the distance. I mean, it was a magical ride. It was like the perfect final ride.
So amazing.
Talk about a phenomenal night ride. We sat on the other side of the wing this time, which I may even like better. It's the right wing, front row.
That was the best ride of the night.
Such
of the day.
A powerhouse ride. It was running fast, going through that 0G roll, sitting on the right side of the wing, going through that element, and then launching into that vertical loop. I mean, I think I may have actually solidified again that I think Yukon Striker is the best ride at the park. For a second, it was for me, because our front row ride, AlpenFury was so good.
Every time we rode one, it was like, oh, this is the best. So we rode AlpenFury, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And then we rode Yukon Striker, I'm like, oh, this is better. And then we rode AlpenFury in the front, and we were like, "Oh no, this is better." And then we rode Yukon Striker a third time during sunset at night on the other side of the wing, and it was like, "Oh no, this is."
So that actually launches me into the next section of the episode, and of course we're already at an hour 20 almost, so we're gonna there's a whole lot left, of course, but next part is actually like I want to discuss our top fives of the park. So my question, I guess, it starts off with: is Yukon Striker still the best, or do you think AlpenFury, for you, like personally, of course, is better?
I guess I would give it to Yukon. I'm giving Yukon Striker the edge because I feel like this is an era of coasters that has kind of ended. We'll see in a few years which ride feels more special, more unique. Right now, AlpenFury feels quite unique. With Six Flags Over Texas building their Giga dive coaster that seems very much like a variation of Yukon Striker. I'm curious to see how that turns out, and I'm curious to see how it runs. I'm not very optimistic after
you know what? I was just looking at the
B&M has had.
Because, of course, yesterday after our great day riding Yukon Striker, and I'm like, wow, this Yukon Striker really is like a smaller version of the big new Giga dive machine coming to Six Flags Over Texas, Tormenta. But then I look at the layout, and I almost feel like the Yukon Striker layout is still significantly better.
It's still better.
Because it's missing, like, a Yukon Striker, you have your vertical drop, you have your Immelman, you have your zero-G roll-ish element.
It's missing the zero-G roll, and it's missing the helix, which are both great moments.
I know, exactly. So, like, what are we getting back for? We're getting back an extra Immelman, and it was like an overbank turn.
And the hammerhead into the bricks, yeah.
I almost feel like Yukon Striker could still very well be the better ride.
But fully expect Yukon Striker to be better.
But Yukon Striker did make me very excited for the dive, because if they somehow manage to do the same quality control as Yukon Striker, which again I'm really hoping that B&M has learned their lesson. And we did do an episode on this actually called "The State of B&M in Virginia." I listened to it a couple weeks ago. But if they really have learned a lesson and they are adjusting to the older standards of manufacturing, I mean, that could be a freaking phenomenal coaster for Six Flags Over Texas. But right now, I do expect Yukon Striker to remain better.
Yeah.
So what's your top five at the park at Canada's Wonderland?
I would definitely pick, I guess I would say I still think I like Yukon Striker the best. That would be number one. AlpenFury is a close second. The only thing that holds it back is I feel like AlpenFury, it lacks slightly in the variety department. I'm amazed at the variety of things that Yukon Striker does, considering dive coasters, especially large-scale dive coasters, are so restrictive. There's only so much you can do with that ride system. I feel like a ride like AlpenFury, you could do anything you want. So if you choose to do 9 corkscrews, like I'm sort of thinking like, oh, well, why so many corkscrews? I'm a sucker for vertical loops. In this era of RMCs and stuff where every inversion is some sort of variation of barrel roll or maybe a dive loop, it's just so great to see a nice, well-done vertical loop on a coaster. So yeah, my instinct is Yukon Striker. That ride has already proven itself. It's aged really well. It's already 7 years old. And we may see more coasters like AlpenFury. Like, this could be the first of many, Intamin Blitz style Premier Rides coasters coming down the pipe. It reminds me of like when Velocicoaster opened, it felt like it was obviously the best coaster ever. Like, but then as more coasters of that product line have come out, it just doesn't feel quite as unique. And I feel like Yukon Striker is always going to feel like a very unique asset to that park. So, and just like a unique experience globally, there's always going to be fewer coasters of that style than of like the multi-launch high density inversion coaster like AlpenFury. So all that to say, Yukon Striker first place, AlpenFury number 2, Vortex definitely number 3. I love Vortex too much to feel differently about it than Leviathan, and then probably Behemoth.
I guess I don't even have to do mine because it's the exact
That's
same.
yours.
So,
it's the exact same.
Yeah, I was, as you were going through it, I'm like, yep, that's the same.
Well, I'm glad I could articulate in a way that you feel the same.
Yeah, I agree. So that makes that section of my little episode notes very short. Next up, let's go ahead and discuss a bit how Canada's Wonderland really compares in terms of lineup to other regional parks in North America. I really had like an epiphany last night when I was making my stories at a park visit, that I really think that this may be the strongest, if not one of the strongest regional parks in all of North America. First of all, they have the most coasters now, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they have.
Like
They technically have more coasters than, I think. It's like right neck and neck. Like Cedar Point, Magic Mountain, and Canada's Wonderland are right at the same level, and some of it has to do, I guess Magic Mountain technically has fallen below because they have retired Superman, especially if you count both sides of Superman as an individual coaster, which we do. They are now down 2 coasters. Cedar Point, like they like to call Pipe Scream a coaster. We don't. Roller Coaster Database doesn't count it anyway, but we count both sides. A Gemini.
So hold up. So Magic Mountain is at 19, even not counting Superman, and it's.
Are you
18
sure? Isn't it because like Superman is SBNO, so it's still there? I was just looking at Roller Coaster Database like yesterday.
Oh,
and I'm pretty sure they're technically down to 17 operating coasters or 18 operating coasters.
No, it's 19 operating and 1 SPNO, which is Superman, which is obviously close. So no, they're at 19 operating.
Yeah, no, you're right.
1 under construction.
Because West Coast Racers was like the 20th coaster, or it was going to be, and then Green Lantern closed, and then Wonder Woman was the 20th.
And Canada's Wonderland are both at 18. So Magic Mountain is still the leader, but Canada's Wonderland in my head is never in that race, but really they should be. Really they are.
Yeah.
Really,
and I guess
Canada's Wonderland
if you count Gemini as 2, that brings Cedar Point up to 19. So Carowinds is 3rd in North America and 4th.
Canada's Wonderland.
Canada's Wonderland is 3rd in North America and 4th globally with Energylandia.
But the lineup now is quite nice, and I think I think it's just something that maybe I just wasn't really, I don't really ever think about that. I always think Magic Mountain for Cedar Point, and I'm sure all the coast enthusiasts have historically been thinking that way, because Canada's Wonderland historically didn't really have much to offer.
Yeah.
Like what we mentioned earlier, the Paramount Parks didn't ever really put that kind of money and energy into Canada's Wonderland, and maybe because Canada's Wonderland was self-sufficient. They didn't have to do anything because it was the only option the Canadians really had in that region to go. It's one of those parks where like doing the least still provides the most profits. But I think Cedar Fair then really started investing because they knew that the return on investment was infinitely greater by expanding capacity and building marketable rides. Like, I mean, Canada's Wonderland is a operational powerhouse and a financial moneymaker. It's great. And so it's talking 2025. It really is part of the conversation.
I think their secret also
is pushed it.
Canada's Wonderland has always been so big that they never need to demolish. They never need to demolish rides to develop the park. They also do a really good job of optimizing the space.
Which is funny because it still feels very small.
Building rides on top of each other when they could have just as easily demolished rides. Like the care that they've taken to weaving rides like Yukon Striker and AlpenFury around existing attractions is extremely noble, extremely impressive. But then Canada's Wonderland has only ever retired 2 roller coasters in its entire history, and only one of them was actually demolished. Whereas Cedar Point has retired 18 roller coasters. For every coaster Cedar Point has, there's a coaster that they built that they no longer have. And I think that's why Canada's Wonderland has so quietly snuck up in the coaster arms race, is because while parks are retiring coasters and like getting rid of problematic coasters, Canada's Wonderland has never built a problematic coaster. They've never built a mechanical headache ride. They've always built coasters that were super reliable, almost to the point of like building very safe rides. And
a production model central before Cedar Fair.
So they've only for every year that park is open, they've only retired a coaster once in 2014 with Skyrider, and then one in 2024 with Time Warp, and that was Time Warp was really like the first time that they scrapped a coaster, like straightforwardly.
And another thing I want to say is that, of course, parks like Cedar Point have every ride is average, a more impressive setting and a more impressive layout, all that, because of course Canada's one of the UC production model central. You got your boomerang, you've got your kind of basic Kings Island woodies,
SLC.
Or Kings Entertainment woodies, SLC, family kiddie coasters. Like right now, we're seeing, of course, all the big coasters, but they're all from the last decade and a half.
You got your Standard Mouse,
your
Zamperla
so
Volare.
For the last 16 years. Yeah. So, or maybe last 20 years, I should say, because Behemoth was 07, right, or 06.
Behemoth was 2008.
8, okay, that's even more recent than I realized. Yeah. And then 09 was Dying Back. In 2010 was Thunderstriker. It's crazy how quick it all happened. Anyway, so I guess that's kind of really all I have to say about it. It's in the North American scheme. I really think it's one of the biggest players now. And it's kind of nice because it obviously, I don't think ever used to be. And their commitment to Canada's Wonderland is great. And I'm sure it's a profitable park, but it's just so nice to see how much they care about the park.
My light bulb moment for me yesterday being there was just feeling so impressed by the number of rides they have and the kinetic energy.
Well, the flat ride collection there
park
is the best of any major North American regional park.
There's just so much movement. There's so much content. Like that park is just rife with solid attractions. There's so much. The kiddie area is so massive. There's so many rides. I'm just so amazed. And like they've got a laundry list of rides that they've retired. It's not like they've never retired a ride. They've flat rides have come and gone. They used to have a log flume, but like for relative to other parks, Canada's Wonderland just really knows how to hold on to rides. Like they are constantly they are always experiencing like a net increase of rides relative, I feel like, to other parks. Like a park like Six Flags Great Adventure, which I feel like is a revolving door of rides and coasters. For as much as they build, there's just not enough for a park that size. It just feels so wildly insubstantial when you compare it to a park like Canada's Wonderland, which is just thick with rides. Like Wonder Mountain alone has 4 roller coasters on it. There's just flat rides everywhere. The kinetic energy, the vibe is so amazing.
The biggest thing about, I think that's the biggest thing for me about Canada's Wonderland is, the coaster collection is 18 coasters wide, but their flat ride collection is incredibly impressive. Between like Sledgehammer and Tuna Twister and Soaring Timbers and Revolution or whatever. I can't even name all of them. Like I'm not even an expert.
I can't even.
There's just so many high profile. I would wait in line for. I would fascinate actually
focal point
does something
rides.
Kind of flat rides. Yeah, that's really impressive. And that's kind of the end of my episodes now. We're at 90 minutes. So, are there any final thoughts you want to add to this, Alex?
I just had such a great time. I loved it in 2017, of course, but even I was just scrolling through our 2017 pictures very casually, and just the amount of change and development that the park has experienced in the last 8 years is unbelievable. It just feels like a party there. It is a flat ride and roller coaster party at Canada's Wonderland, and
it doesn't feel like they're having a hard time. It doesn't feel like they're having a hard time managing it. I feel like sometimes in the Cedar Point visit recently was actually kind of terrible because I feel like even Cedar Point can handle the amount of rides they've got going on if they don't have the proper staffing and the proper operations. But at Canada's Wonderland, it just feels like they've got it together and they manage very well.
The ex-Paramount parks always
collection.
Feel that way.
It's true, though. The Paramount Parks
all
the best
of the Paramount parks feel like the best operated parks in the Cedar Fair chain.
They always feel like that's the premium tier, and they've got like the very regional tier, including Cedar Point, because it just feels kind of regional in its approach. Like it feels seasonal, and then you've got your small Cedar Fair parks. But the Cedar Fair, I guess it's all Six Flags, of course, now, but I still refer to them as Cedar Fair. Yeah. Anyway, great park. And, if this is the energy that corporates are going to bring to some of the parks, like Circus Over Texas and Circus Magic Mountain and Circus Great America, there could be a very bright future ahead for these parks. Yeah. And going to a park like Canada's Wonderland that is the poster child of the Cedar Fair effect post Paramount acquisition. Yeah. To me, that's like, oh man, like that gives me all sorts of new hope for the new Cedar Flags.
Whatever Cedar Fair is doing, it's like you can't go to a park like Canada's Wonderland and look at what Canada's Wonderland looked like 20 years ago and look at it now and not like feel like Cedar Fair is doing something really well. Because 20 years ago, Canada's Wonderland was a completely different place and like not in a good way. And now it is like truly like a zero to hero, like rags to riches sort of story. You take a park that just had virtually nothing of remarkable substance to a park that is like a dominating force like one of the 5 largest coaster collections in the world, a true icon for like an entire province of Canada, really for a whole country. Like Canada's Wonderland is like the beacon of amusement park experiences in Canada, and one of the theme park, regional park tent poles of all of the Western Hemisphere. So Cedar Fair is responsible for that.
Yeah, and since they're pretty much managing the new Six Flags, I'm just really, really hopeful that means that a park like Magic Mountain is going to get cleaned up, and the park of Circus Over Texas is going to see the big coast it's been deserving all along.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Circus Over Texas' growth has been so stunted, whatever you call it. So I'm excited for this, and I feel like the Six Flags Over Texas getting this dive machine, the Yukon Striker evolution pretty much, is a very clear indicator of, like, I think Cedar Fair... management now leading the Six Flags chain at the original Six Flags park as very clearly immediately see what needs to happen. I always feel like I'm seeing a Carowinds, Kings Island, Canada's Wonderland situation already happening at Circus Over Texas. That makes me very excited.
Yeah, me too. I look forward to going to Six Flags Over Texas with you. That's a park that we have never been to together.
Oh, yeah, we haven't gone out together. That's right. We've only gone out separately.
Isn't that funny?
That is really funny. And with that, guys, I want to thank everyone so much for listening to this episode of Coast Kings Radio. We're trying to put out an episode every Wednesday due to travels and unforeseen delays and whatever all around the world. Sometimes Alex and I do not get to line up our schedules like that. But I'm glad we got to talk about Canada's Wonderland this week. We had a really great visit. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. We would really appreciate it. If you leave us a little written review on, Google or Apple. Sorry, Apple. We don't do Google anymore. That doesn't exist anymore. We will give you a shout out on here. And we'll catch you guys hopefully next week with another great episode of Coast Kings Radio. Bye.
Bye.